Hello and welcome to Investment and Development Nigeria. This is the program that profiles Nigeria's economy and the expectations of the people, the dividends of democracy, development strategies from different sectors of the economy. So today we're looking at the expectations of Nigerians for the incoming government of the president-elect, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We're also taking a look at the 10th National Assembly, the implications for Nigeria, and what dividends of democracy we get to derive from a positive National Assembly. And I have with me two panelists, Aminu Shehu, an APC chieftain and a political analyst. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
And seated next to him is Honorable Fabian Agore, NRM candidate for House of Reps in Delta State, and president of the Southeast South Concerned Citizens Forum. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now that the elections are over and we have a president-elect who's about to be sworn in May 29, what are your expectations? What do you see coming through this government?
Okay, I would clearly say that given the way the elections were conducted, and now that we have a president-elect, I hope sincerely that the president-elect will make the right decisions. I have 6 expectations from the president-elect. First off, I expect that the president-elect will look into the CBN, because we have come to see that the CBN actually impacts greatly on our economy. And if you look at the current situation of Nigeria, you will see that we have a high rate of inflation that we have never experienced before.
Sure.
So appointing the right candidate, the right individual as CBN governor would make a whole lot of difference with regards to our exchange rates and with regards to inflation. So having said that, I would expect that the president-elect would also look for technocrats, just like Obasanjo did. Just like he did when he was governor of Lagos State. And he should not go with the governors who are clamoring, who are lobbying to become ministers, because most of these governors did not perform excellently as governors. So I would push that our president-elect should look for technocrats, because that is what he campaigned for. He says one of his greatest qualities is his ability to spot qualitative, competent individuals. And we have seen it truthfully from Lagos State. Mm-hmm. Right, so he should ignore the ex-governors. We don't want ex-governors as ministers in Nigeria going forward. Because looking at Buhari's government, we had lots of ex-governors who did not perform in their various ministries. So having said that, the third thing I want to emphasize is that this current president-elect must look into education. We know of the ASU strike that lasted for eternity. And that equally impacted on the economy. Because if you want to build a great economy, you have to look at the labor, which is the people who would function in the economy. So we must focus on education, ensure that our primary, secondary, and tertiary education are top-notch in terms of standard, and then healthcare. Now, security is a big factor. You can't build an economy without a secured environment. So the president-elect must ensure that all the security forces are well equipped and well trained and well paid, right? So that we do not have the situation that we are currently suffering from, especially from the Northwest and the Northeast. Even across Nigeria, even the Southeast is experiencing it. So security is an important factor. Then fourthly, I would emphasize that the president-elect, as a matter of fact, must come up with some mix of economic policies and programs that would help to boost the agri-sector, boost manufacturing, boost SMEs. This program is particularly focused on how Nigeria can become great through different enterprises, both public and private enterprises. That's what this program is about. So the president-elect must ensure that he brings in a good economic team that will look at the agro sector, Right. I've mentioned all of what I said earlier, but let me finally, at this point, say that my last expectation for the president-elect is pretty much very simple. I expect him, if he does not do anything for the next 4 years, he should give us constant electricity. This is not rocket science. We already have a national grid. The previous administrations have done lots of good work with regards to distribution. In fact, our distribution is not in the hands of the government anymore, it's private sector. So our generation equally is not in the hands of the government, it's private sector as well. So if the president-elect does not do anything of all these 5 things that I mentioned, the president-elect should ensure that he gives us constant electricity. I believe that with that, Nigeria's economy will jump, and all of these insecurity issues we have will be history. Thank you.
Let me come to you, Amina. What are your own expectations of the incoming government?
Well, thank you very much. Actually, I have high expectations on the incoming administration. First among which, we needed security. We need the incoming administration to do away with the issue of cabals, because they tend to draw the administration backwards. Part of the expectations from the incoming administration is that we need to have a competent hands. Like my brother said, really, he needs to have a competent hands. He should go for people who are capable, who has the competence, who has the pedigree to at least work for him and in the best interest of this Nigeria. Then the corruption issue. You see, this is generally the biggest trouble, the biggest problem we have in this country today. Corruption. The incoming administration should do as much as possible to do away with corruption, at least bring it to lowest minimum. And then the youth. You see, we have a lot of youth roaming about on the streets, and part of which has brought about this issue of insecurity. So we expect that definitely the incoming administration should at least create more employment opportunities for our teeming youth. Doing so will definitely curb a lot of insecurity issue. The last one is, I think, the independence of the 3 arms of government, not only the National Assembly, the judiciary, and of course, the executive. Doing so will bring about a lasting legacy, and then we also have a very good governance, which all of us voted him for to become the president of this country.
We'll go on a short break. I will be right back. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Investment and Development Nigeria. And on the spotlight is our expectations from the incoming government and also our expectations from the 10th National Assembly. And let me come back to you again, Fabian. The composition of the 10th National Assembly this year. What is the implications for Nigeria?
I would say that
And expectations.
it is one of the best things that is happening to our democracy, because we are tired of the, two-party dominating the National Assembly. Now, the APC does not have the majority to win the Senate election, whereas the president-elect and his men, let me put it like that, what I've read in the press, are out to endorse a particular candidate, which of course is in the press, so I can mention him here. Senator Godswill Akpabio. Right, and this is undemocratic. Yes, I'll go back to the original question you asked, which is the composition of the National Assembly. I mean, this is both in the Senate and in the House. We have a large majority from Labour. We have a good majority, which is the second majority. Same thing in the House, right? So the The executive, which is the president-elect and his people, he has not nominated his ministers. We read in the press that they are anointing certain candidates for Senate President and for Speaker of the House. Now, I want to equivocally say that that is undemocratic because the executive arm of government is an independent arm of government that is totally separate from the judiciary and totally separate from the legislature, which we're talking about now. Coincidentally, I ran for House of Reps like you already introduced me. And there is no way I would have been in the House if I had won and I will see this stand where the executive is coming to dictate to us who becomes our Senate President and then who becomes the Speaker of the House. Because like you know, once the election for the Senate President is done and that of the Speaker, they now make appointment for those who would head the different, what do you call it now? The different committees. And the leadership of the Senate and the leadership of the House will now be determined by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. If you are a member of the House and you are a senator, please, you need to be independent, because if you vote along the line of the dictate of the executive, then you have become a slave.
Wow.
Really, this is the absolute truth. The independence of National Assembly is what Nigerians are yearning for. Okay. Definitely. You can imagine what had happened during Bukola Saraki led the National Assembly. We have seen it all. And then when you compare it with what is happening today, of course, you can draw a lot of lines there. So definitely, what we want, what we are yearning for, and what we are urging the executive, they should not meddle into the affairs of the National Assembly. Nigerians need an independent National Assembly so that will enable checks and balances. And that will guarantee a right democracy. They should allow for an independent National Assembly and also the judiciary. Now, after the inauguration of the president-elect, we are also expecting him to at least inaugurate the National Assembly. On that day, we want to see the process, free and fair, peaceful election that will now, where the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the National Assembly will emerge independently.
Okay.
Doing so will definitely guarantee a good democracy, and Nigeria will be happy with that. Okay. Definitely.
All right, brilliant. So what is the implication, what is the significance of an independent National Assembly?
Importantly, if you do not have an independent National Assembly, you do not have a proper democracy. Because democracy says we have three arms of government, right? Of course, we don't want a legislature that is fighting the executive, obviously.
Okay.
Right. We don't want a judiciary that is supporting the executive. We want a legislature that would stand when the executive is going in the wrong direction, especially with regards to what we just saw in terms of the borrowing. Nigeria is highly indebted because we have a National Assembly, which is the Senate and the House, that were rubber stamped to the executive. So what we are saying is we want an independent executive, we want an independent legislature, so that, because one of the functions of the legislators is to have an oversight function on the executive. Oversight function now means you submit your budget to me, I scrutinize your budget to ensure that it's in line with the needs of Nigerians, and then I also ensure that whatever you have budgeted for these programs, they are executed. This is not just oversight function for ministers or president, also for all the agencies of the federal government. The same applies to the states. Now, we're focused on the National Assembly now because of its importance. So what I want to say is that if we do not have an independent National Assembly. Now, what this means is that if we allow the executive to have its way in deciding who becomes the Senate president and who becomes the Speaker of the House. Now, let me even take the Senate president, for instance. I know these three persons that are contesting for this office, meaning I have read them in the press. Of course, we have Senator Akpabio from Akwa Ibom, who was the former governor of Akwa Ibom State. We have Senator Abdulaziz Yari, who was also a former governor from Zamfara State. We have Orji Uzor Kalu, who was also a former governor from Abia State. So if you look at this clearly, you will see that all of these persons had played executive roles. So in other words, they understand governance. All three individuals can be said to be highly competent. All three of these gentlemen. One was even president of Governors Forum, which is Abdulaziz Yari. In other words, he has chairman of Nigerian Governors Forum. He has relationship with all the governors in Nigeria, meaning the man has traversed the length and breadth of Nigeria. He understands the need of Nigeria. And as a governor, that man performed so well. I'm using Abdulaziz as an example now because the executive cannot be pushing Senator Akpabio because they have some special interest in Senator. No. This man called Yari has a lot of competence. So also is the man called Orji Uzor Kalu, Senator Orji Uzor Kalu. So my place is that they should allow a free and fair election in the Senate and let whoever is best to the senators emerge. Whether it's Senator Abdulaziz Yari or Senator Orji Uzor Kalu or Senator Akpabio, they should allow the independence of the Senate election. Because if the election is influenced by the executive, then the independence is lost already for Senate and for the House. And if we don't have that, we can't have a thriving economy. If we don't have that, we would not have a corrupt-free society. If we don't have that, we cannot have a safe and free society. Because you will say, how does the Senate and House affect security? You would also note that one of the key functions of a senator or a rep member is to move motions. So for instance, in my constituency, which comprises of 3 local governments, part of my work is to look at the problems. So if there are insecurity problems in my constituency, I will come to the National Assembly and I will raise a motion. I will raise a motion to say there is insecurity, meaning I'm calling the attention of the executive to my constituency. Now, that for a senator will be a senatorial district. So if we do not have an independent, for instance, if we have a rubber stamp legislature that supports every move of the executive, there might be a problem in my place and I would not raise it. Because in other words, don't forget that security is fully in the purview of the executive. So we want an independent legislature. We want senators to be independent so they can do their function that the people elected them to do. Don't forget that the elections into the Senate and the House are done, and the people in those senatorial districts and constituency voted for these individuals to represent them in Nigeria, in the federal. So where these individuals now sell their soul to the executive, that means the people will suffer. Wow. Because all of the functions of oversight function will not be there. The function of moving motions to call attention to the issues that they are suffering in the constituency and district will not be there. And then the function of constituency project will equally suffer.
Wow.
Because those are the 3 major functions that the legislators, they play.
So, I mean, what's your take?
Well, as I've mentioned earlier, Nigeria doesn't want a rubber stamp National Assembly. We want an independent National Assembly this time around. And I believe we have capable hands among the senators-elect. Somebody like Abdulaziz Yari, if I can mention, is really a very capable hand. When he was chairman Governors Forum, he was able to unite the governors, and we have all seen that. Nigerians are all living witnesses. when he was the governor of Zamfara State, he has done tremendously, very, very well, more than any other governor of Zamfara State. Abdulaziz built roads, even that of federal roads, he built and submitted it to the federal government. He built state roads and the township roads. When it comes to the aspect of rural electrification, Abdulaziz has done so much well, more than any other governor in Nigeria. In fact, Fashola, when he was Minister of Power, said that the federal government will imitate him. They will copy his model. In fact, he was the role model during Fashola's minister as Minister of Power. He built motorized boreholes, and there was 80% subsidy on fertilizer. So you can imagine, the maize was cultivated in large quantity, and this was able to, as a result of the 80% subsidy on fertilizer.
Wow.
And the poultries were able to get a lot of maize during that time. And that was why, if you can recall, during that time, Zamfara poultries were being built during this time. So I believe he's capable, and I am calling on the Mr. President-elect to please allow for a free and fair and peaceful contest on the day of the inauguration of the National Assembly.
Okay. So, Fabian, your final answer.
Well, I want to say very clearly that the three top candidates we have Akpabio. I will call him Akpabio, even though he's Senator Akpabio. We have Senator Abdulaziz Yari, and then we have Senator Ojuzo Kalu. Now, if you look at these three candidates, now I'm talking to the senators who are going to vote. If you look at these three candidates, even Nigerians, now Nigerians should know this. If you look at these three candidates, you realize that the first one, which is Senator Akpabio, has been endorsed by the executive. In other words, Senator Akpabio is clearly a rubber stamp candidate for Senate president. In other words, if we vote him, if you guys vote him in, it's just going to be a rubber stamp, and it will be business as usual. Now, if you look at the last candidate, which is Ojuzo Kalu, you realize that his precedence over the years hasn't been very good. It hasn't been very good. Now, the only candidate that seem, I'm using the word seem carefully. The only candidate I am convinced would not be rubber stamp. This guy, I'm sorry to call him a guy, this gentleman, His Excellency, has been the president of the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum. He was governor for 8 years and did excellently well, like my brother here said, which I know of particularly because I have followed Zamfara State for a while now. And he's a man of his own. He's not a man that can be pushed around by even the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it is the candidate we know that would not be a rubber stamp candidate. It's the man that would actually stand for the good of Nigerians. So at this point, I want to say that across party lines, PDP, APC, Labour, NNPP, please vote for the candidates that will not be rubber stamp. And you know the three major candidates, and you know the one now that will not be rubber stamp. Thank you very much.
Right, Aminu, let's round up with you.
Thank you very much. Well, remember a saying that to whom much is given, much is expected. I think during the recent election that ushered in the president-elect, we have seen the voting pattern and we have seen the number. Well, democracy, as it is said, is a game of number. Northwest produced the highest number of votes for Mr. President. You see, Abdulaziz Yari has done so much well there in terms of bringing votes to him. I think a large percentage. So I think Abdulaziz is the answer to 10th National Assembly. He has the competence, he has the pedigree, and I believe he's trustworthy. We can trust him. I am calling on the senators-elect to please rally round behind Abdulaziz Yari and elect him as a Senate President of the 10th National Assembly, and we will all be happy. Thank you.
So, on that note, we'll round up. You want to summarize your expectations from the incoming government? That was where we started.
Yes, having looked at the 10th National Assembly, I would say that if this incoming government want to do well, they should start from there.
Wow.
They should make sure to win the hearts of Nigerians, given that the election that brought them in is even in contest. So let the National Assembly election, especially that for the Senate president, be independent. That way you will win the hearts of Nigerians, because Nigerians will begin to see the president-elect as a man of justice and equity, not one that wants to meddle with the future and lives of Nigerians. So, Mr. President-elect, please remove your hands. Tell your men to remove their hands from the National Assembly election. Let us have a truly independent election for Senate President and for House of Representatives. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, on that note, we round up. Thank you very much, Vivian Agore. Thank you very much, Aminu Shehu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's a wrap on investment and development Nigeria. You can see how politics and the economy is interwoven. We need the policies to improve on our investment profile and bring a lot more dividends of democracy to Nigeria, especially in areas that needs to be developed. My name is Mayo Awudwabi. Thank you for listening. God bless Nigeria.